Before we get into today's article, you've got to ask this simple question. Why do the Tories hate, and I mean hate with a passion, especially the Brexiteers, hate the Northern Ireland Protocol so much when only just, you know, what may seem like a small while ago, they were singing the praises of Boris Johnson, even the Northern Ireland Protocol, for being able to get Brexit done. This was what needed to happen. We've done it. We've cracked it. And then it didn't take them long, literally 3 months. The Brexiteers in Parliament started to turn against the protocol, saying how awful it was, that it wasn't, quote, working. But here's the thing. You go to Northern Ireland, you ask businesses, and overwhelmingly, they're saying the protocol's working. They're loving it. They get the best of both worlds. They get to be part of the UK while also being in the single market and customs union. They're loving it. You compare Northern Irish businesses to businesses over here in the rest of the UK, and their order books are full, while the rest in the UK are empty, losing customers, you name it. And this is why they want the protocol gone. Because you can look at anywhere else in the UK and compare it to Northern Ireland, and you can literally compare how economically, like the north of Ireland is doing while, again, remaining in the single market and customs union versus anywhere else in the rest of the UK. It is not a good look when that area is flourishing while the rest is, well, dying on a vine because they're not in the single market and customs union. But as always, that was never the plan by Leave put forward at the referendum. They even said, and I say it time and time again, only a fool would leave the single market, quoteth one Daniel Hannan, aka the brain of Brexit. And yet, when Brexit happened, it was the hardcore zealots that decided that, enough, that just wasn't Brexity enough. And like any revolution, the extremists took control and pushed and pushed and pushed. And sooner or later, like any revolution, it eats its own children. And almost certainly the Brexiteers are certainly in for a shock, because doing what they're doing now is just an absolutely stupid move. We're going to see the exact same stuff we saw playing out when David Frost was the minister in charge for these negotiations. But now we're going to take a very interesting look, because how is Ireland reacting to this news? Because obviously Ireland is going to be somewhat quite affected by this. So how are they reacting to all this? So today we're going to have a look at one of their newspapers over there to see how they are reacting about all of this. So before we do that, though, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a notification link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel that way. So on we go with this. This comes from the island.ie, the independent from over there, with the title of "Threatening the Protocol is a Reckless Move by the UK." Hardline Brexiteers in the UK have been threatening to bring down the Northern Ireland Protocol since its inception. Now, by all indications, they are set to get their way, with the Prime Minister Boris Johnson poised to introduce new legislation as early as next month, guaranteeing Westminster sweeping new powers to unilaterally override key elements of the Brexit agreement with the EU, including ending checks on goods arriving in the north. At this late stage, such a provocative step is no longer about the rights or wrongs of the protocol. Putting a customs and regulatory border in the Irish Sea was always likely to prove very unsettling for unionists in its need for recognition as such sensitivities that Brussels had repeatedly now extended the grace period before even the full protocol comes into force. And of course, far more ominously, the issue now is whether the current administration in London can actually be trusted to keep its word about anything. And that's the thing. Why should the EU make deals or do stuff anymore with the current UK administration. It can't very well clearly keep its word. And even if you get rid of Johnson, those Brexiteers are still very much in check and in charge and in power. What changes? The UK denies that that its intended legislation would break the international law, saying it already has the powers under Article 16 to suspend the protocol should it cause economic or social disruption, which it arguably has in the shape of protests. However, the existing agreement already contains detailed procedures to resolve such disputes. The British are clearly hoping that the tiny amounts of trade involved as a percentage of the EU-wide economy will tempt Europe into folding at a time when attention is being focused on Ukraine. But this is no way to solve differences between the parties by into, again, a binding legal agreement that took years to painstakingly negotiate, that was separately signed into law by over 28 sovereign nations, including the UK, just 2 years ago. So how can any other country currently negotiating trade deals with the UK, such as the US and even India, trust London to actually keep its word? The suspicion must be that Downing Street is cynically using the threat of the protocol to distract the backbenchers from Johnson's woes over the Partygate, and, of course, from the worsening economic forecasts exasperated by the self-harm of Brexit. The legislation that is being spearheaded by the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, the frontrunner to replace Johnson, should be forced to step down, and is surely not without significance. It is in her interest to court the Tory grassroots in preparation for a tilt at the top job. A gamble this outrageous by the British government could be bad enough at any time. And right now, the Unionists are even unnerved by the prospect of a Sinn Féin taking the position of the First Minister in the Assembly after the election. And it could be more stunningly reckless and irresponsible. It could also only embolden the ugliness elements of the anti-Good Friday Agreement loyalism. And against this very febrile backdrop, it is all the more important that these disputes are resolved partially and patiently and calmly, not by blackmail and brinkmanship. If Boris Johnson goes ahead with this threat to wreck the protocol, it will confirm again that he is not a serious politician. But the damage he can do to the people who share this island is a very serious one indeed. The Irish government must protest and resist his adventurism at the highest level. Britons must also realise that letting their Prime Minister axe away for a very selfish short-term gain can only do irreparable damage to their country's reputation, security, and prosperity. So, overall, I agree with them at that end. This is just so cynical. It's absolutely crazy. But I also agree with the fact that this legislation being put forward by Liz Truss could very well be an attempt to try and secure the Brexiteers, at least the Brexiteer vote from our own, not only fellow MP colleagues, but also the Brexiteers in the Tory grassroots as well. It comes about very, very well timed, of course, from all this Partygate stuff, when all this had been quiet. Since Frost had gone, it had all been very, very quiet, suspiciously so. And then all of a sudden, now it's got to go. We've got to change it all. If you ask me, the timing, I agree with the article, the timing is far, far too suspicious. But it's definitely very, very profitable for someone like Liz Truss to try and put through legislation like this. But of course, chances are this legislation will probably ultimately be stopped. Like I say, as much as I do not like the House of Lords, sometimes I am very, very glad we've got it, because sometimes it seems to be the only place where serious conversation about legislation that is being passed is actually had. Which, well, is very, very worrying for our country and its democracy. I tell you that now. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page and a notification link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. And of course, we'll see you all next time.